Hello, my name is Corbett Harrison, and I am a writing teacher and a writing trainer and a website designer. Over the summers, my wife and I, Dina, she and I sit together and we create new resources that will feature at our website, and the summer of 2007 has been no exception. We are getting ready to roll out a new product for writers' notebooks called magnetic poetry tiles, inspired by real magnetic poetry, but it goes in a writer's notebook. If you're interested in this product, let us know. We'll give you in this video ways to use it ahead of time to see if your students will like it, but also if you're interested in the whole product, there is a much bigger product than what I'm sharing here in this resource that we've made. So just in brief, our journal and writer's notebook philosophy in our classrooms is based on the idea that what you put in your writer's notebook should be personally interesting or personally motivating to you. I challenge my students to go outside of the box, think outside of just paragraphs, and to try different formats. It's an easy place to practice and fail, or practice and succeed. And so why not try some different formats to see if you might surprise yourself? My students are encouraged to take topics they like, but to think about them in unique ways, from unique points of view. We always are sharing our pages, and the goal of a good writer's notebook journal program is that students want to look back on their own notebook and they want to share what they've done with other students, because once good sharing starts happening, everyone's notebook in a classroom starts improving. And that's our philosophy of writer's notebooks, and everything we build is try to make students like their writer's notebooks a little bit better. At our website, Always Write, which is a website about my classroom, you'll find many other resources, but at Dina's website, which is called Right in the Middle, you'll find some as well. Please feel free to check them out. Let's talk about these magnetic poetry tiles. So this is a sheet. The product that we're actually building will have 24 of these. Each of them has a different theme. This one is preparing the garden for planting. We're trying to make 4 or 5 seasonal ones and then just some free choice topics. But the top third of that page are all words specific to the topic, and then the bottom chunks are all words that would be necessary in language arts to create sentences and to craft thoughts with meaning. And that's, instead of a bunch of magnetic poetry tiles you have to break up, this is what the students are handed when they get magnetic poetry tiles. And the idea is, with scissors, they first of all, the goal is not to write an entire poem here. The goal is to create 1 or 2 lines, or just a really interesting line of description that's got a poetic feel to it, and then put it in your notebook and save it so that you can do something later with it. And that's the big idea here. The lines of poetry, or the cool description that you write, it can become the first sentence of something that you write, or the last sentence, or hidden somewhere in between. By itself, sometimes poetry is very brief. It might just serve as a corner illustration in your writer's notebook, these magnetic poems. And what I like, my students who don't feel they have poetic perspective, here's a chance to add a poetic element to your writer's notebook, so that my students who don't feel creative, I can say, well, at least you've got some poetry going on here. And the tiles kind of force you to get poetic. And then finally, writers can continue the poems that they start by handwritten, or in some other creative way that they build. That's the idea of anything we put in our writer's notebook, is that you get it down so that you can come visit to it and turn it into something bigger and better, perhaps later on. Here is a little close-up of the top third of that page. So here are a bunch of words poets might need. The idea is that you clip the sections apart, is what we're asking students to do. You don't cut out every single word and then start writing. You're going to have a huge mess on your floor if that's the case. But if you cut them out in chunks like this, and then say you want the word climbing there right in the middle, well, you fish your scissors in there and you get it out, and then you clip carefully so that you don't trim the other words. But this is the idea of these. Don't cut every word out. That's my first message. It takes an hour of time gone just there. When Dina is getting really good at purposely choosing words that can be clipped. So if you didn't want the word farmer, but you wanted the word farm, well, it's there in both forms. You just have to be careful with your scissors and get the word that you actually want. And flowers can become flower, and dirty can become dirt, but then you can use those suffixes that you've trimmed off, and your other words that are here can become things as well. And so it's word manipulation. That's one of the skills you can teach students while you're using this. Good thing to talk about before they work on it. The scissors are real important. I tried to neatly divide the page. I wanted this to be about grammar as well as poetry, and so you'll see that the students can cut out the sections, all the prepositions together, all the conjunctions together, all the questions and adverbs together. That's the idea here. Cut them out in those pieces. And what I like about that is when they're in chunks, then when students are fishing for words, trying to find that word, and it's hard to find because they've got many chunks on there, they can say, hey, I need the word on to. Does anyone have the word on to? Someone else can easily yell out, it's on the preposition section, and suddenly grammar vocabulary is being used in classroom. Any chance to increase vocabulary and in grammar is a plus in your direction. And so note that the pages were designed, the tiles were designed so that students would have to think grammatically, especially if encouraged. And from these words, you should be able to start trimming out things that sound poetic. This shoveler of worms, remember the theme I'm cutting off here is preparing the garden. Shoveler of worms, what does that make you think of? And that's the idea of finding poetry in an assortment of words like this. Ooh, what am I thinking of now? I think of my dog, and then I think of my dog pushing the earth into a furrow of nourished soil. My dog's a terrier. Terrier comes from the word for earth. He digs in the earth, and then we can work to grow a harvest is maybe a poetic line. This is all words that came from that sheet. I now have 2 lines of poetry, and then the question is, what do I do with those lines of poetry? Well, here's what I ended up doing with them. I put them on a page in my writer's notebook. There it is. Both lines are there, but the we can work to grow a harvest line kind of became the bottom frame that you read last. And I decided, I reserved a page, I put it up there. I took a picture of my dog after he had fallen asleep after we worked in the garden, and then I realized I have perfect amount of space at the end of this page to write for 10 minutes the next time I have a little chance in class. And what I ended up writing was how me and my dog Boone have enjoyed working in the garden this summer together. So there's a little close-up of the actual poetry. Just so you know, this is what we've discovered. If you put a dab of glue stick on the back, get them down, and then tape them conservatively, you'll well have kids who will burn through your tape budget if you're not careful here. But again, that's another reason to just do a couple lines of poetry so that you reserve your classroom resources. Dina, like I said, we're making seasonal topics so that these can be used all year long as options for writer's notebook projects. Dina's making one with Snow Day as a theme. We are going to ultimately have 24 thematic sets of tiles. We're actually going to probably have about 5 sets per season, and then free sets that you can use any time of the year. Birthday party was the theme that I heard Dina working on yesterday. And then there's going to be a blank one. That top third will be left blank when you buy the whole set so that your students can design their own. I have to tell you, Dina finds it very challenging. You can't choose too big of a topic like government, and you can't choose too small of a topic like a game of Parcheesi, because you just won't come up with enough words for it. So it's an art she's learning as she designs these for us. But by August 15th, these should be ready. But let me show you, and they'll be available at the Always Write website. Let me show you the words from Snow Day. And so here's what Dina did. She admired these words. Dina likes to play with descriptive words going together, and so she came up with winter snow crystals sparkled, while snowballs whistled by, laughter at our numbness. Those were her 2 lines of poetry that she focused on here. And she had another, that's right, she had another 3 lines. Smiles while shivering. She had a 15-line poem here. My apologies, Dina. She ended up gluing and pasting it on a piece of paper that she could put into her notebook. She actually teaches a lesson on snow, and part of it is the joy of snow, and part of it is the seriousness of snow. And this is an activity she did in the same lesson or unit where they wrote social emotional poems based on what would happen if they were involved after doing nonfiction reading on an avalanche. And so ultimately the 2 halves have come together. This is Dina's interactive reading notebook where she responds to nonfiction and reflects upon things that she's learned. What I like about this is it's nice two opposite ways to think about snow, the scary side and the beautiful side, but it also captures some thoughts that she's going to want to remember and has lots of descriptive voice and language in it. That poetic perspective, when you add it to a nonfiction topic, interesting things can happen. And so it all came from those 15 words. I'll show you my last activity today with the third set that we're offering completely free at the Always Right website right now. Try them out with your students before you buy. That's our big rule. And so you get 3 sets. Raking Leaves might be the one that you use if you start in the fall. But again, here's what the product's going to look like. Coming out soon. We are working on a deadline. But here are the and here's what I want you to think about. There are 2 ways that you can approach this task right now. You can think, I just want a couple of words to impact my poetic thinking, or you could say I want sentences. And so let's start with the word. From these words I could come up with vivid golden forest, and just those 3 words alone as a piece of poetry put at the top of my page. Maybe I have a title for something. Maybe I have a memory I could write about just on those 3 words. Found poetry. It's very inspirational. Or crackling garbage bag, I think, would be a great title for a story, or a scary story perhaps. The garbage bag that attacks you. I don't know, just ideas that jump into my crazy head because I keep a writer's notebook. Stomping season. I love to jump in the leaves, and so I thought that might be a fun way to describe leaves. But there I am, just taking poetic words. Watch what you can do as well. You can then use all of the other words below this chunk of words that's showing right now on the list, and you can go sentence-y. All right, it has always been stomping season. Now I'm making sentences that sound poetic. Just because no crackling garbage is mine, a vivid golden forest can be ours. And now, from the same chunk of words, I've taken just a couple descriptive phrases, and now I've shown you it at sentence level. I don't care if you think about these from the sentence level or just a couple of words coming together. All of those things that we just saw happen can very easily become something that inspires a longer piece of writing from your students. Again, these poetry tiles will be available at the Always Right website. And the easiest probably way to find them, it was our July of 2017 lesson. We put out a lesson every month. Over on the green menu bar on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see one called Full Lessons. If you click on that, just look for the July 2017 lesson. Or if you Google the following words, it will end up as the top hit in Google when you get there. Look at the bottom of the page that you end up at, and you'll see that these are the 3 that are available free of charge. Please use them. Try them out with your students. We want to know if this idea is successful with your students, like we're seeing success with our students. That is my video on how we're going to be using these magnetic poetry tiles this year, continuing to use them and offering them so that if you're interested in them, know that they are available. Thanks for watching the whole video, and please look for more. We're going to be sharing lots of new video ideas this year with the resources that we post. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.